celebrate his achievements and our personal experiences. And obviously we ran short with TV, but as a I just want to start with yourself. I know you got a gig to go to, but just what else was there about Sidhu? You mentioned about Drake. I know obviously you can't mention too much about it.
Yeah, I mean, time will tell with it.
Yeah,
but it'll be a pleasant surprise for everyone.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just his calmness and his sort of just very like, regardless of the situation that's going on. I remember at Wireless, it was just manic. Like, some people get angry about other stuff. Someone might be arguing with someone about something minor, but he is like just so chilled and calm. I remember we were just sat next to each other, literally like this, for about half an hour. We were just chatting, and like, I'm not gonna lie, my Punjabi is not the best, and his English is not the best, but he's talking to me in Punjabi and I'm talking back to him in English, and we're having a great conversation because we both understand what we're talking about. And it was just nice, man. He was saying that he's going to be in America, and I was like, I'm going to be in LA as well.
You never saw him criticise anyone, did you?
Even with work ethic or anything,
I mean, what it is?
Like,
if you're going to have, I think when you have drama with people in the industry, it's healthy competition.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. It
gets like language, for example, right? Like,
some people will berate another person like Punjabi only.
No. He didn't care about that. He's not bothered, because at the end of the day, everyone's different in it. Like, it's the way someone's brought up or whatever. That was mine. But he was cool, man. He didn't care. He was so like chilled, and he did try to speak English as well. But you're not going to mock it, because there's people out there that are like 10 years old that can talk 4 or 5 languages in it.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So at least he's trying. But man, that's one memory I do have of him, just sitting there, just chilling. Like,
guys, also apologies, I forgot to mention we're joined by another panelist, DJ, producer, and TikToker. Aiden, am I right? Yeah, so just for yourself, I know we can't talk about a lot of the projects that you're working on, but from a TikTok obviously point of view, you do have obviously knowledge, right? But in terms of sounds, obviously that trended. There was a lot, right?
Sounds hit different on TikTok. You will never see a TikTok and just not use his sounds. Like, Sony Lag there. Everyone's used that. 47. I get it's not a traditional TikTok sound, but everyone is heavily using his sounds, and it's just Sidhu. The one regret I have is I just never got to see him live. Never got to see a legend, which hurts at the end of the day, because he was amazing.
One thing on TikTok, right, and is how do you measure someone's success on social media, right? It's the hashtag. So you type on TikTok hashtag Sidhu. The numbers there, you cannot fabricate those numbers per se. You cannot fabricate how many times someone's used the sound. And when you click on a sound and how many TikToks have been made by someone, that's genuine. You know what I mean? And these are hundreds and thousands of people that made sounds as well. But Stephen, just for yourself, I know we touched briefly on, you performed with Sidhu, but there's more to it, right? Than just,
Yeah, I mean, we performed. The performance was great, and kind of then briefly said hello to him backstage, and that was it really. And I thought, okay, well, that's it. But then, we went back to one of our mutual friends' house, a guy called George Kera, lovely guy, who's quite close with Sidhu. And we just went back to his house, not knowing that Sidhu was there, and we went back and he's there, and, we sat with him, and kind of that was when you really got to understand the kind of a man he was. Like, obviously Aza's chilled with him. Aza's respect for him probably went up so many notches after speaking to him and chilling with him. So sat there and, just talking about everyday life, my respect levels went up. I've got a really cool story that we were sitting there and someone started playing Chamkila, like, obviously a huge fan, and Sidhu's a massive fan of Chamkila, and like, we're both vibing to it, and he's kind of looked over at me, and we got this like little mutual common ground now that we're both Chamkila fans, and he's so he's he likes that basically. And then, for him to then turn around also, to say to me that, you know what, bro, he goes, I really enjoyed your song. I looked at him, I was like, you heard my song?
Yeah.
No joke. Because I didn't tell him I was a singer or anything. One of the other band members in passing you know, increased 2-3-fold because of the person he was. And like, you know, it's been alluded to before, what he is on stage
Yeah.
is different to what he is off stage, and he is very shy.
Yeah.
Quite quiet, is humble, very humble,
Mm.
and you know, he's almost like he's reserved.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, he made the effort to speak to you, and you know, he doesn't need to, right?
And people forget how young he was as well.
Oh man,
You know what I mean? The age factor, like he wasn't, like he was still a young guy in his
And I think
20s.
that's massive because age often gets overlooked, whether you're in sport or whether
Yeah.
you're in music or anything like that. But if you think of what you were doing at that age growing up or whatever, this guy was doing things differently. So he had a completely different set of pressures on him,
Yeah.
on top of normal everyday pressures that you might get at certain ages or so on and so forth. So his ability to deal with that,
Yeah.
you know, again, it's
Kudos.
massive.
Because you know what, just on that point, I remember I can't remember what happened, and it was Jenny Nathan and them lot who mentioned this. And he made a video saying, look, man, it doesn't matter what I do now. There's always going to be controversy. Someone's always going to have a problem. Someone's always going to spin it. So from now on, that's it. I'm going to say, I'm going to do what I got to do. You're either going to love it, support it, or you're not. And that's it. And I thought that was just big. You know, some artists will get triggered by, you know, these comments and articles, etc. But with him, it was like, I just felt his way of battling that was just dropping music after music after music. Because when you're flooding the market like that with quality, any kind of negative media people are creating for you for the sake of creating it, it just gets brushed aside and put aside as well.
It's critics through music, right?
Yeah.
You know, and all the controversy that people tried to create, you know, to affect him negatively, it worked in his favour because look, man, this is social media or publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity, and you know, a lot of people tried to bring him down. A lot of people said a lot of bad things for him, but you know what? It worked in his favour, and it made him bigger and bigger and bigger. Right?
I think that's going to be the big thing when the story gets told. It's like, it's important when you looked at somebody like, let's say Chamkila as a comparison, you've got footage of him performing, but you wouldn't have day-to-day footage. We've got so much footage of Sidhu day-to-day, all these little things that you could put around, and that's the context of a lot of the stories that are around in it. So I think it's important, even at this, you know, as raw it is and early, that we recognise what factors are being played everywhere. That will then narrate how the story gets told in the future, because that's very hard to get context at the time.
One question I want to ask everyone, right? And it kind of slipped my mind. Were your parents? Like, did your parents react when they heard the news of Sidhu? And the reason I say that, right, is so like my dad, he's more into his traditional Punjabi music, like Punjabi folk, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? He prefers traditional folk. So he wasn't a fan of the hip hop kind of things. But again, he acknowledged that, you know, Sidhu's doing things differently, he's breaking the scene, etc. But he was the first one to call me and said, you know, did you know this has happened? I was like, nah, it can't have happened, man. Like, you hear all these rumors flying around, this happened, that happened. I was like, nah, it can't be. He's like, I'm watching it right now on YouTube. Like, they're breaking the news. And even he was kind of like in the shock. And then, you know, I spoke to like other family relations. They're like, yo, have you heard? Have you heard? Have you heard? And I felt like it was like that Michael Jackson moment where it wasn't just our generation. It was, you know, you touched our parents' generation, even though they might have not liked his sound per se, but they knew who he was and they knew he was doing big things. But what was your parents' reactions like when they found out?
My parents were abroad.
Yeah.
My parents, I was at the airport to pick them up, and so they landed. They heard the news, like over what was going on. Caught the plane, came over, and then as they were like said, "Oh, hello," and then I was like, "Oh, did you hear? Is it true?" And then I was like, "Yeah," because originally the first kind of reports coming in was like he was shot at. Yeah. So you're just hoping, oh, okay, he's dodged it, and then you just started seeing the videos, and then they were just getting more and more graphic, and then you're just thinking, oh, this ain't looking good. This ain't looking good at all. And then you could just see when you're telling somebody, you know, what's happened chronologically, the story, they're living your emotion exactly at the same time. So my parents like that. Even like today, they popped over, and that was a term of discussion. But you've got to be aware of, like, I keep going back to kids. It's so multi-generational, his impact on so many different things to kind of consider.
Devastated. My dad was a big fan, massive. remember ringing him and he was heartbroken. And even when he's watching it today, the funeral stuff, he was saying to me, he's like, man, I felt like crying. He was like a big fan. I remember at the Brit Asia Awards, he was so gassed to see him. So gassed.
Yeah, to be fair, similarly like yourself, Tej, my mum and dad, they weren't the biggest Sidhu fans. They, preferred more traditional, per se, Punjabi music, folk music or whatever. But this is the thing, like the fact that the older generation know who he is shows he's a household name. And I've said it before, whether you love him or hate him, the man's a household name, and it was a case of music aside, no one deserves what happened. So that, I was in the car with my mum actually, when the news broke, and she was like, oh no, she was shocked, taken aback, because you don't expect it. First thing that hits you is shock. And then my dad was like, I heard, and but yeah, no one, it's a case of they look at things from a different perspective because they've got kids and so on and so forth. So immediately they relate with his parents, or they feel bad on that level, and they don't look at things musically. If anyone looks at things musically, it's the people in the music. They look at things from a humanity perspective. And so that, it was a loss of a very young life, and that's what they were kind of sad about.
So I walked into the house, and the first thing they said when they saw my face was, "So it's true," and I just nodded my head and I walked off. And then they started asking questions, obviously, and they were like, "How did you find out?" And I was like, "Wait, how did you find out?" So people sending it around. They were like, "You haven't seen the videos, have you?" And I was like, and they just kind of left me to it, but they were taken aback because they didn't expect it. No one did, and they were like, "That's someone's son." They saw it as, what if that was our child?
Guys, I know it's getting late, and we'll be back tomorrow, guys, from 8 p.m. But guys, it's been a pleasure. Keep doing what you guys are doing, and keep honouring Sidhu in the best way you guys can. Thanks so much, guys.